Hey everybody, Shane Presley here with Rock Paper Podcast. I have a couple of exciting things to tell you about. First off, June 22nd, Broadway Oyster Bar, I'll be hosting the 5th annual Rock Paper Podcast birthday show. And this year's party, I'll have Amanda Fish Band, Tony Campanella Band, and Odds Lane for your entertainment pleasure. Again, this is June 22nd, Broadway Oyster Bar. We'll be starting off about 10 o'clock. It's a $8 cover for the show. And along with all the great live music, of course, we'll have delicious food from Broadway Oyster Bar and cold drinks all night long. And live art from my friend Jessica Hitchcock. So it's going to be a great night. Can't wait to see you all there celebrating 5 years of Rock Paper Podcast. Pretty crazy to think about. Also, coming up real quick on May 14th at Naked Vine. It's my May edition of my singer-songwriter storytelling showcase. This month I'll be bringing along Billy Crogan and Tony Compton of Les Gruff and the Billy Goat, along with Karen Choi. So come on out. It's a 7 o'clock start for that show. $5 at the door. May 14th at Naked Vine. And if you haven't been out there, these are all a whole lot of fun. It's really a quiet, intimate singer-songwriter storytelling show. Of course, they'll all play acoustic and sitting on stools, and it's a nice listening room experience. So come on out to that one. And that's every second Tuesday of the month at Naked Vine. Let me tell you about my friends over there at Naked Vine. If you haven't been by, it's a cool little space they have going on out there, serving up all kinds of wine, whiskey, tequila, and local craft beers. You can catch some great live music there Thursday through Saturday. And this week on May 8th, you can see Jason Garms out there. That's Thursday, May 9th. Jason Garms will be out there. On Friday, Nick Detmer and the Sawdusters on May 10th. And John Bonham and Friends return on Saturday, May 11th. You can find all this information and more at nakedvine.net. Be sure to follow along with them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And get involved. Come on out. It's a really cool thing they got happening out there. And I also want to tell you about my friends at Joseph Meyer Club. You've been hearing me talk about them. They have a really great foaming aftershave that I've been using. I love it, and I think you will too. Give it a shot. You can try it today right now for 20% off using my promo code RPPJMC20 during checkout. Again, RPPJMC20 at checkout at josephmeyerclub.com. You can follow them on Facebook also for more information and get involved. I think you will really like this. It smells awesome. And the foaming is really nice too. It's not really messy like any liquid ones if you may have tried in the past. So if you're looking for some new aftershave to try, check out Joseph Meyer Club. Again, thanks to all my sponsors. Thanks to everybody listening. I really appreciate all the support over the last 5 years. It's been a wild ride. So thank you all for continuing to listen and tell friends. Again, you can find Rock Paper Podcast on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Get involved with the show and let me know what you think. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
A podcast is kind of like it's like a radio show that's not on the radio. It's on the internet. Does that make sense? Uh-huh. Yeah. That's also like my mom. It makes it sound more confusing, doesn't it? It sounds like this.
Hey, this is Sean.
Hey, this is Joe. Hey, this is Phil. We
are
Alligator Wine.
You're listening to
Rock Paper Podcast.
Rock Paper Podcast. Rock Paper Podcast. Rock Paper Podcast, y'all.
1, 2. 1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, Shane Presley, Rock Paper Podcast, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. Hanging out today with the guys of Alligator Wine.
How's it going?
Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey!
Hey, Shane.
This is cool. I'm glad to be back here. I know we've done about 45 of these, I think, but I don't think we've ever talked actually about done a proper Alligator Wine one. So
it's about time.
yeah. So let's go around the mic. You guys want to introduce yourselves for everyone listening?
Sean Anglin, drummer, percussionist.
Joe Capan, bass and vocals.
Phil Wright, harmonica and vocals.
Yeah, man. Now this, like I said, a couple of repeat guests for sure. But this is cool that we're back here talking about this project, especially as things are kind of gearing up for the summer. You guys got a lot of stuff happening for the group, and but I guess I know we've kind of covered some of this stuff in the past with some Philapalooza appearances and different things you guys have done, and but kind of. You guys want to give me a quick rundown, a little brief history of Alligator Wine when everything started with this group?
Sure. We came together, I guess, a couple of years back on for Jerry Week for the days between.
Mm-hmm.
There was we were all playing Terrapin Tuesday events, Pops the Moon in different incarnations, and they basically wanted somebody to come in and do a set of Dead on Jerry's birthday. And Sean was playing with Vitamin A. And we were all friends, and Carson and Joe and I were doing the Candeleros, and we're like, well, we know these songs, and Sean's like, well, I got nothing going on that night, and I know these songs too, and let's get together, and we pulled together like literally a set list maybe over the course of 2 days, and went in and flung it together, and had a blast, had a big crowd response was good, had a fun time.
Those first shows were great because it was literally fly by the seat of our pants.
Yeah, we'd like send out a Facebook Messenger list to everybody and say like, hey, run through these songs. It was never meant like at the beginning to be anything that was too formal. It was just be like friends get together and jamming some Dead tunes.
Yeah, it was just for fun. It was more of like just play the blues songs, Pigpen era stuff, type stuff, and just people kept asking for the other songs, and we're like, well, we're doing this, and okay, we'll change.
Yeah, it turned into like I think it was probably 2 weeks through 2 or 3 weeks.
Not very long.
And all of a sudden we had a band name and a Facebook page and
It was about
pictures.
third gig in. It was like, well, let's just give ourselves a name.
Yeah, let's just do this. And so over time it morphed and went from, like Joe was saying, went from being the Pigpen era like blues stuff from the early late 60s and stuff like that to, well, we all like these other songs, let's try adding these, and so we grew and morphed and developed over time, and we took a brief hiatus there, and we're kind of deciding which way we wanted to go with it, what we wanted to do, and gradually added members, and other guys stepped to other projects and things back and forth, and when Brian McCormick got involved with the Midwestern, I guess a little over a year ago, one of the first things he asked me about was Dead Night at the Ballpark.
Yeah, when I saw that post, the first thing I said to message Phil was, let's book it.
Yeah.
Let's book it. We'll figure out the band after we book it.
Yeah, we'll figure out everything else after that. And so he's right. And so coincidentally, like by the time Sean sent me that message, maybe within 2 days of that, I ran into Brian McCormick at the Oyster Bar, and he's like, "I want to book you guys for Dead Night at the Ballpark." And I said, "It's funny. I was looking for a gig for Dead Night at the Ballpark, and I didn't know anything about the Midwestern. I had no idea about the venue, and he kind of gave me a brief rundown over a couple of beers, and got home and I messaged these guys and go, well, here's that gig opportunity we were looking for everything, and probably within a matter of a couple of days we had it lined out, and been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was just thinking my friend Lexi Schlemmer, she was used to sponsor the show for quite a while, and when they become good friends, but she gets a lot of calls for random things, and that's one thing I learned from she told me was like, just say yes and then figure out how to do it later, it's like
That's very true, very smart.
Yeah, I'm like so there's a lot of things that she might have gotten over her head, but she figured it out how to make it work and stuff. But that's the thing, you don't want to turn down a gig like that when that's a great opportunity.
The next time they won't think of you. They're like, well, they turned it down,
Right.
So you got to keep yourself open all the time in any aspect of your life.
Yep.
Well, it's a lot easier too, which I think like all of us have with music in general, and our jobs in general, is like you said, that mentality of say yes and figure it out later. Sometimes it's how you learn the most. Is like going, all right, I got myself into something. How do we put this together?
Time to hustle.
Yeah, time to hustle and go from there. And I think with this it was a little bit different because we knew we had, you know, we knew we could do it. It was a matter of how do we want to do it and who do we want to be. You know, how do we want to go about building it? So, you know, we all love the Dead. You know, being a Dead tribute band in St. Louis is, you know, I was talking with somebody the other day. It's not common. Most cities have multiple different Grateful Dead tribute bands. And for St. Louis to have a handful and them all to be very talented, very good, but very, very different the way that everybody's approaching things. And, you know, we think we definitely have a different way of approaching it, and we're friends with all the other guys. I mean, we have a different way of approaching it.
Yeah, it's not about competition. No. It's just, I mean, we all love, I mean, there's so many people in St. Louis that love the Grateful Dead. It could be like 5 other bands.
Yeah.
You know, it's if you love it, just do it.
Well, Josh always jokes about the fact that he can't go out and see live music, and Josh Watler always jokes about the fact he goes, maybe it's people I'm friends with. He goes, but I can't go out and see live music in St. Louis without hearing at least a Dead tune or two.
Yeah,
everybody covers it.
It's
all over the
ingrained
place
in the city for some reason.
That is the truth.
It's the truth.
There's a lot of bands that do a lot of Dead songs that you really don't even realize until they get busted out in front of you, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't know they did this."
Yeah.
And it happens all the time with all different kinds of bands, not just jam bands or folky bands. I've seen it with edgy keyboardish bands.
Yeah.
Breaking something out, and you're like, "Well, that works."
Yeah. It's funny how there was an interview with Jeff Tweedy at one point talking about his Deadhead phase and how I think they went out with, you guys remember better than I did, one of the lineups went out with Wilco and Government Mule and all those guys years back with one of the traveling festivals, and there's a recording went around all over the place of Wilco doing Ripple with I think Phil Lesh on it.
I believe
the guys, and it was like one of those. I guess they'd covered Ripple in Wilco's set quite frequently.
Yeah,
and so it's like,
I mean, Ween is covered Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
I mean, if that tells you anything,
right.
Just because So anyway,
yeah. I personally, I knew some of the hits, some of the Casey Jones or whatever, some of the big ones and stuff. Sure. But as far as deep dive into the catalog, I really, that was on, and then didn't grow up on the stuff, I didn't really have anybody exposing me to a lot of Grateful Dead music when I was younger, and but even since working at Oyster Bar now for 3 years, and hanging out with you guys and everybody else around town, I've definitely learned my fair share of Dead tunes now. And
force
stuff.
feeding. You will like this.
But it was something I never grew, I never really had a true appreciation for it. It was, some of the stuff I liked, but I didn't really get the whole phenomenon,
Right.
I mean, growing up for me, I never listened to the Grateful Dead when I was growing up as a kid. I was listening to Van Halen and Black Sabbath and Metallica, and I just in high school I started hanging out with kids and they're like, "Oh, listen to this,
sure,
you'll like this," and then I'm like, "Oh, I do like this. Yeah. What is this?" It has this whole magical thing that I never felt before. So it's really shaped who I am as a person and a musician.
Yeah. But my thing was seeing it live made me really appreciate it. Watching, like you're saying, how there is several bands doing it around town, but everybody brings something different to it, and it's all their own way.
Flavor,
their own way doing it live, and that's what I really, makes me appreciate it more. Is seeing all these guys playing it live and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's one of the beauties of the band though themselves is that they weren't coming from just a straight ahead. I mean, they were a blues and jug band early on, but they weren't ever really easy to pigeonhole. They had a little bit. There was blues, there was rock, there was jazz, there was country, there was world music. There was a little bit of everything kind of in their music.
And bluegrass.
Yeah. I mean, you can find a lot of things in their music, and so it kind of opens itself up to be interpreted differently by different genres and different forms of players and different things. And that's why at first we were we're straight ahead doing the early blues stuff, and I think we all kind of being people who have not necessarily grown up on it, but have been listening to it for so many years at this point. We're it was kind of. It's
let's branch out.
Let's get into some of the headier stuff that we really want to get into,
cuts.
And that's kind of where we are right now with it. Is I feel like we're we've added several new songs for surprises for this show, and some of the deeper cut material that maybe we have wanted to do for a while. We've had some time, and that's kind of been the nice thing about having some downtimes. We've been able to take our time with rehearsals and kind of sort out through some of the stuff that takes some time to do that. And I know that I'm excited. I know these guys are excited about it. And
I don't know. I'm not really excited.
Joe's not
Is
impressed.
it time to go yet? No.
Not impressed.
Joe's not impressed.
You guys mentioned in the Pigpen stuff. Did you guys see this meme that went out?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
You
I saw
realize
that
they
one.
hijacked
Yeah.
your blues band.
Yeah.
All right, that one cracked me up, man. That
You
was,
can't see it. It's a picture of
yeah,
Pigpen.
right.
It's a picture of Pigpen. This being an audio form of media, Pigpen's holding up a tambourine, and it says, "When you realize that a bunch of hippies have hijacked your blues band."
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean,
Just
Jared,
drunk on the whiskey.
yeah.
Right.
And realized a bunch of hippies.
well,
God love Pigpen, man. He and you know what they even say that Pigpen was and will forever be a member of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
well, yeah, Jerry has said that
is
he was
true.
the
And
leader.
They all said that. All of them have said that Pigpen was the Grateful
Yeah,
Dead.
he was the front man.
And for whatever reason, the band went different ways, and Pig went his way. But you can't escape that. That's the root and that's the base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually some of that old early stuff is as trippy as any of the new stuff.
Oh yeah.
They get some of the Pigpen raps going, and they those guys dig deep, and sometimes they bring it down to like a whisper. Mm-hmm. But you can hear every single note, and it's just fantastic.
Do you guys? I mean, not that like you. I don't think anybody strives for it, but like kind of a healthy competition and rivalry, like trying to dig out something that a deep cut that nobody else is doing in town, or any of that kind of stuff. Like try to do something different with it, like that.
I kind of want to do that. Like, I mean, there's no point of hearing every band in St. Louis play Friend of the Devil,
Right.
or something. I mean,
All the
that's
time.
fine, but it's like we want,
And we'll play it.
well, we do play it,
regularly.
yeah. So we are those people anyway. But yes, I mean, you have to differentiate.
Differentiate.
Yeah, can't even talk.
I got you, buddy.
Sorry, podcast world. But yeah, you have to, make yourself stand out a little bit.
Right.
Like, oh, well, wow, they're playing this song. Like, I haven't heard that, in a while. So
Yeah, and I don't even know.
and it's fun for me, especially learning that stuff because I
Right.
love it so much. I was like, can we please do this? Please, Anyway,
No, I don't even. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I've always said that like one of my favorite album versions of anything is playing in the band, and because the one that they recorded for the album actually best represents what the Grateful Dead is going to sound like live.
That's true.
It's an amazing studio recording, and to be able to. I think sometimes to be able to sort of like pull from the studio stuff and not so much the live stuff almost lends more of a credibility to it. It's not, we're just going to jam, some live stuff. It's like, okay, well, we actually listened to the album, and this is the way they played it. This is the way they played it in the studio.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that I've gone back and we talked about this. I have. But listen to the studio versions. Something that I probably just, I guess, stopped doing a lot when I was younger because you're just so immersed in all the live stuff. Especially once they started releasing so much of the live material officially, and you could actually get quality recordings. All of a sudden, you'd go years and years and years without hearing like the studio version of. I remember hearing the Estimated Profit studio version for the first time in I don't know, like probably 10 years, and I was like, that is so awesome. Like, I'd be kind of being blown away by it.
I mean, I had that tape. I listened to that tape, like Terrapin Station, went over and over again.
Yeah.
And then, I would go, like you said, years
without hearing
that version. And you go back, listen, you're like, whoa.
And then when you hear the studio
The
version,
production and everything.
there's a really cool way we can actually play this like this and still open it up.
Right.
And still,
like listen to Fire on the Mountain, the studio version. It's the drums are so sparse.
yeah.
But the beat and the rhythm is all still there, and that's actually kind of the beauty of it. It's kind of fun to try and emulate that sometimes, and not try to be the whole busy nonsense with like try to do the dual drummer thing as a single drummer, but just like I'm just going to play the straight simple beat that they played on the record, and man, sometimes that groove is just deep.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, you asked about the competition side of it, and I'm as competitive as as a person. I'm very competitive, but I don't know that I'd necessarily. I don't actively think about it as being a way for us to be something where we're like saying, "Come see us because we do this different or better than what they do."
Yeah, it's not,
I think it's one of those deals where it's kind of fun for us to go. Here's something that separates. At least saying it's not better or worse; it's just different. These guys are likely to delve into this. I know that we've talked about this too, and by early 20s, when you could go on Thursday or Friday night to 20 North to see Jake Slag.
Oh, yeah.
You could go to Saturday night and see 710 at the Country Club.
Oh, yeah.
And then on Tuesday night, the Swagger, the Kind, did their Tuesday night deal. So for 4 nights a week in St. Louis, you could go see Dead music, but you could also get a different spin on all of it from all 3 of those bands.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fun to kind of have that way to kind of branch out and go say, all right, their spin on this song is really cool, or this song is, I just heard these guys do this the other night, but it sounds different and cool the way you guys are doing it. And that's kind of what I think, I don't know that there's necessarily one thing that differentiates us between the others by any means. I think it's one of those deals where, we all go see Jake Slag all the time. We're still friends with them and play with them as much as we can. And I'll go see them on a night where we're off. If they're playing, I'd love to go see them. And I think and we're friends with. They come out to our shows, and it's one of those deals where, it's kind of fun to kind of sit and banter with them back and forth from a perspective of saying, I like the way you guys did this and this tune or whatever else. And it's kind of like there's definitely a total mutual respect with everybody, but at the same time, kind of like a fun, friendly sort of like way to push each other.
It's always a learning experience.
Yeah.
I learn every time I watch this.
Nothing is mean spirited. It's all kindness and we all care about each other.
Well, if you're not learning something from watching somebody else play, even if it's not dead stuff, I'm constantly stealing something from somebody else. I have 2 jobs. I'm a teacher and a musician, and both of them we steal everything from somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like nothing's necessarily straight up original. It's always like I borrowed this idea from somebody else and made it my own.
Yeah.
But I get that from seeing other players play, whether they're harmonica players or whether they're guitarists or keyboardists or horn sections. I've learned a lot about how to play my instrument by playing with horn sections, and you kind of just find a different way to approach things. So I think that's kind of what playing music in St. Louis or playing music live in general, I think, is about.
Yeah. Nice, man. Well, let's get a couple dates out there where you can come see Alligator Wine. Like you said, you mentioned Grateful Dead Night at the Ballpark coming up. That's Friday, May 10th. And Alligator Wine will be at the Midwestern 5 to 7 before the game.
Doing acoustic stuff before the game, 2 sets. 5 to 7 at the Midwestern, and then after the game we'll be doing 2 electric sets as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So what, for you guys, is there a big difference when for you to strip it down and do an acoustic set compared to the electric? Is there you guys do a lot of change in the arrangements, or just?
I don't think we changed the arrangements. I think it's just mostly it's acoustic.
Yeah.
We could do most of the electric stuff. Not all of it, but most of it, we could do it acoustic. It's just, we don't want to, I guess we're doing it because there's going to be like a dinner crowd earlier.
Yeah, it was kind of the venue's idea. I like doing the acoustic stuff too. With the Dead, maybe more than some other bands, there's a treasure trove of material that they did.
Yeah.
There's a couple albums. There's Reckoning. There's a couple albums where they're like, these are songs that in my mind are acoustic songs because they're the versions that we.
There was a whole series of years where they would do 2 sets.
Yeah,
or an early show and a late show,
right.
And the early show would include acoustic sets a lot of times.
Yeah, and I saw them do that with what was one of the lineups? I think it was Further, or where they were just called Just the Dead or whatever they were. But one of the lineups in Chicago did that. They did a first set electric. They came up for the second set, and the drummers brought out small, cocktail kits in front, and they did a stripped down acoustic set for 4 or 5 songs, and then went into drums, and then went back to their drum kits, and then rolled out. And that was at Chicago at I think it's America Center or whatever. But it was it's kind of cool. It's the only time I've ever seen them do kind of like that sort of a setup for a Dead show. And so I think for this band, especially with the Dead, there's so much material that, like I said, you can think of as being the acoustic too. And so I think we steal from that a lot for the acoustic set. So like Joe said, we could take a lot of the electric songs we have. We take a lot of electric songs and strip them down to acoustic. And,
but when the Dead did the acoustic thing, there were songs they just did acoustic.
Right.
And they never really did them, electric.
We're also not just pulling from the Dead. We're pulling from Garcia.
Well, Garcia, Olden in a Way.
Any of that, really. It's, since we haven't ever really discussed direction, or we kind of discussed direction, how we sound different than everybody else. That's kind of one of the things we really do want to do, is be able to dig so deep in the catalog that we're not just saying, well, we only really do Grateful Dead or this era Grateful Dead. It's like we do pretty much anything that any of those guys played.
Right.
If Weird played something, or if Kreutzmann's band does something, we're going to probably look at putting those in the repertoire at some point.
That's why you'll see
not all of it, obviously, but we're not going to count that kind of stuff out. You know,
No.
I mean, they did Stones tunes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
no one really thinks about that, but they did Satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of goofy to think of the
I'd
Grateful Dead
love
doing
to do that.
Satisfaction.
Can we do that?
But they did,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and it was a hoot. It was a hoot to see live, and you know, who knows? Maybe we'll put it in the repertoire.
There you go.
Yeah.
You'll have to come out and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about like with that band again, like you said, is that there's so many other side projects that they all had. And you tend to lean on the Garcia projects because they're so prominent. But you know, Old and the Way was a completely different band than the Grateful Dead. And
Well, yeah,
so
it was a bluegrass
it was a
band.
bluegrass
You
band.
have like Legion of Mary.
Yeah.
And
So you're pulling some of that, and then even Jerry's like even the Jerry Garcia band, the electric, like the version that I think of anyway, was you know a real gospel and soul based sort of like you know project that wasn't quite as
That Almost Acoustic album is fantastic.
yeah. So, you know,
John
and
Conn.
that's the thing is that you know we've seen in our event pages we'll say things like you know covering or paying tribute to the Grateful Dead and then the quote family songbook or something like that, which I think kind of includes anything that would be any of those guys had touched. Which I couldn't agree more with Sean and Joe that I think all that stuff's in play for us. That we want to be able to add as much of that side material as we can too.
Yeah. I love like you're saying doing an acoustic and electric set like just because I'm a big fan of acoustic music myself. So I think it'll be a real treat to come out for the early set, go to the game, come out for the late set too.
Yeah.
You get a whole different experience and so that's going to be a fun night for sure. Again, Friday, May 10th, and then let's see what we got. June 21st, you guys will be at the Boathouse, right?
Yep. Back at the Boathouse, it's always a fun one, playing right there on the lake with the water right behind you. So
Yeah.
we haven't really talked about it, but I got a feeling that we might do an acoustic set, at least one acoustic set there too, probably. I would think that's kind of what we talked about. Ideally, we'd maybe do one of each, but we'll see.
Right. And then a big one coming up for the holiday, July 3rd. You'll be at Naked Vine, one of our favorite West County spots out there.
it's the only.
It's the only West County spot that matters. As far west as we go.
You hear that, Brian?
As far west as we go, buddy.
Right. But this is a Dark Star Orchestra after party, right?
Yeah, and so it's right. Dark Star is playing at the Chesterfield Amphitheater early that evening, and I believe their show knocks off at 11, and I think we start at 10. So we've got some mutual friends, and so you never know who might pop in and hang out with us after the show. So we'll be playing at the Naked Vine, less than a mile away from the venue. If you've not been to the Naked Vine, as Shane can tell you, and as any one of the guys sitting here at the table can tell you, if you're a city person, you will feel right at home. If you're a county person, you'll also feel right at home. It's just not going to feel like an Applebee's. That's all. Now, Brian's, as you know, Brian's been great to work with. The venue feels right at home, and it's our favorite little city bar in the county. We've joked about that forever.
I mean, I love playing out there. I mean, we played out there Saturday night.
Yeah.
I just love playing out there. Brian's such a good guy and just a good soul and just.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just really easy, you know.
They announced that date, and I think I ran into Rob Koritz, the night before at the Oyster Bar. They announced the date the next day, and he made a passing joke about you guys ought to play at the Naked Vines right on the street. And he's like, I live right by there. And
Yep, he does.
the next day, I messaged Brian, and by I think 5 o'clock that afternoon, we had the details worked out and had it booked. And I messaged Koritz, and I said, done. Yeah. So, that'll be a fun one. That'll be a good
We'll
time.
buy you a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on over, Rob.
Yeah.
Have a shot of whiskey.
And then we'll have some other. We've got some other dates we'll be announcing here pretty soon. But those are the three that are the most pressing right now for us.
Yeah.
For sure.
1, 2, 3.
You're all still breathing.
Well, you guys want to talk about some of the other players in the project?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that we definitely started off as a 4-piece with basically the three of us and with Carson from the Scandaleiros, and it was organic and it was fun and it was cool and it took off. And as we went further along, it's just one of those deals where we were playing less and less with that. We all had multiple different projects going on, and we're also very focused on the Scandoleros, and it was becoming a little bit more where Carson needed to focus on this, and we needed to focus on going this direction. And obviously, we're all still the Scandoleros. We're all still tight. We're all still buddies. Everything's good. And so Nick Elwood had been playing with us pretty frequently. Nick Elwood from the Stone Sugar Shakedown had been playing with us pretty frequently, really for about the last year, I guess, right?
Yeah.
About the last year or so. Right. Yeah. And so we talked to Nick, and he said he was on board to continue with us, and wanted to really have that second guitar player along the way, but kind of debated back and forth, and we always had Spanky kind of playing with us pretty regularly as well. And Spanky, we knew we could count on him to be a part of the times that it made sense for us to be able to expand the band that way. And just through really talking about people we knew and everything. And I know Joe had played for years in Naked Groove with Tim Moody, who had been in Naked Groove and the Swag both. We decided we'd see what that worked out, and give it a whirl. And you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I've been playing with Tim Moody since 2003, off and on in Naked Groove, and and then he joined the Swag for a few years there, and so there he just learned the whole catalog pretty much, and I figured he'd be the perfect fit for this, for this group, and I was like, come on, let's give him a try, and see what happens, and he just fits like a glove.
There you go.
He's a sweet guy,
right
good soul, and so,
absolutely
Nice.
Yeah, it worked out real nice.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe I know Tim, so I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, you just missed him. He left a little bit ago. Yeah, but hopefully you'll meet him soon.
Sure, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'll definitely probably see him at one of these shows coming up. So
Yeah, it's real nice. The interplay that Tim and Nick have going right now is
it's
pretty good. They've hit it off pretty well, and we're pretty excited about the way they're working together. And then obviously with Spanky, I mean he's a busy guy, so to get him at a rehearsal is
right.
is rare. So we actually got him at a rehearsal, and he even commented the same thing. He was really amazed at the sound, and I think that's going to be a killer part, is having the sort of interplay between Tim and Nick, and then Phil and Spanky, all those four mixed together.
Yeah.
Trading licks, little bits here and there. That's really going to be nice.
It really opens itself for like the four-headed monster, as far as like having four soloists, like to try to divide things up and push each other. I mean, that's one of the things. I know that I'm pushed by the people I play with all the time, and that when Spanky's on a gig, it pushes me in a different way, because we think alike in certain ways, but and tonally our instruments can be similar at times, and it's kind of fun to be able to push to like, okay, I have to think about this a little bit differently because Spanky's on this gig.
Well, for me, I love hearing harmonica in songs that I never thought I would hear harmonica. Like Terrapin Station.
Yeah, you're throwing some lines through some of those songs tonight, and I was like, that's awesome.
it just that's another thing that differentiates us from, I got to say the word, and from the other bands, it's like not, they don't have harmonica players that play some of the, the lines that maybe a guitar or keyboard would play, and so to me that's amazing, and I love the sound that comes out of that.
Well, shucks, guys, thanks.
You're welcome, buddy.
It's really cool.
Yeah. No, and I do think that instrumentation alone, and having really two lead guitar players at the same time, which we had with the Carson too, and having that sort of twin guitar approach, a la the Allman Brothers or maybe Mo or something like that, that kind of has that. And hearing those guys tonight and the last couple of rehearsals, working on some of those melodic stackings of phrases with the guitar lines, and I'm listening to them what they're playing, and I'm thinking in my head, well, I can get in the middle of that, or I can get above that note, or whatever. We can make a different sort of sound, a different sonic scape for the whole thing that would be different than maybe what other people are doing, because you're adding now Spanky and me and two guitars all kind of playing that signature line, and it kind of becomes I don't think I've heard other people do that before, so it's kind of a different approach.
What's been really nice about those two is you've got the best of Weir and Garcia. They both sort of both Tim and Nick can adapt to, if the other one's soloing, well then okay, I'm going to play some quirky.
Well, they both know both of the parts.
I'm going to play some quirky weird licks, and then vice versa. It's like, okay, Nick, it's your turn, and then Tim's playing some quirky weird licks. And that's awesome. I think that's it. You don't have a dedicated rhythm and a dedicated solo.
No.
That's
kind of
definitely
like Warren Haynes and Jimmy Harris.
That's what I was going to say. Like,
You know, like,
friends
I mean, not that they're,
no,
just that kind of vibe. You know?
right. The theory.
No, but that was always. I know we've all three talked at different times. That was always kind of what I think we really saw this band morphing into was.
Right.
If you don't know, and maybe you're not familiar, Shane, there was Phil Lesh and Friends had a lineup that's commonly referred to as the Q. Phil Lesh is the bass player in the Grateful Dead, and he had a lineup for late '90s, early 2000s, was known as the Q or the Quintet, and it featured Warren Haynes from the Allman Brothers and Government Mule, and Jimmy Herring, who's now in Widespread Panic, but had been in Aquarium Rescue Unit and a bunch of other bands, and they really and as well as Allman Brothers, and so they really brought that kind of Allman Brothers twin lead guitar sort of approach to the music of the Dead. And I remember seeing them the first time I saw them was in Chicago, I think. I might have been in India, I can't remember. But first time I saw that lineup, I was just mouth open watching those guys just...
They would start the show off with just a jam and then just segue each song and not stop until the end of the set. Like, you wouldn't have time to go to the bathroom. You wouldn't have time to get a beer because you're going to miss something.
I had a lot of sober shows during those days. You just didn't want to go in the beer line. You might miss the really
and those are some of the best shows I have ever seen in my life.
Rookie move.
I only sold you two at a time, but still, yeah, there was some seriously amazing face melting moments with that lineup where you're like going, those two guys in Bracco and Keys just pushing the envelope.
John Molo on drums.
Yeah.
I mean,
pushing the envelope for the whole thing. And I remember thinking then, I'm like,
beast.
I'll probably never be in a Dead band. But if I do, I'd really like to do that. That's really
we
cool.
do that?
That sounds really awesome. If I'm ever going to be in a Dead band, if somebody wants to let me be the harmonica player and play with everything I want to play on a Dead band, maybe I'll start my own.
You're welcome, Phil.
Yeah. So, I just remember thinking that's what I wanted to do.
I mean, that's actually what's kind of cool is that I don't think any of the bands in town are really trying to sound like the Dead. None of them really are trying to recreate,
No, that's not the point.
Right, Dark Star has that locked up. They're doing the ones recreating the shows, right? So Jake's Leg sounds like Jake's Leg.
Yeah.
But they sound like they do because of their own musical influences, and the same with the Schwag, and the same with us. I came from a completely different musical background than Phil and Joe and Tim and Nick. So we all that's what I think is great. We all have a mutual love for that music, but it's our interpretation of that is a conglomeration of our love for the Dead, but our influences beyond that.
I was kind of wondering about that, like if you guys, looked at like gear and that kind of try to kind of match those tones or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, personally, I love Phil Lesh.
Yeah.
And he's my mentor. I just love him so much. I mean, I don't want to sound just like him, but
And you don't.
No, I know.
You sound like you.
I sound like Joe. Yeah. So, we're not. I'm not going to buy exactly what he has. Well, for one reason, I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
But I do. Have like one of the basses that he kind of used to use. He doesn't really use nowadays. A modulus, whatever. But yeah, he was just an influence, and I'm not going to sound just like him, but I try to I don't know what I'm saying.
What about you?
Well, for me, it's less about equipment because, they're just playing drums. So, and as a single drummer, we're not going to get into the whole rhythmic aspect of the drums and space bit that they do. Although I do have some thoughts for that we'll discuss at a later date.
Yeah.
But I do tend to emulate, for lack of a better term, drum licks that I know that like Mickey played on certain parts of songs, or that Billy did in certain parts of songs, from having seen it live and then having heard it on recordings.
No, I hear it.
Because to me, it's just like that's what I hear, and I could always just play the way I want to play, or I could add that and sort of like it brings me back to where I first heard it. So I don't necessarily try to play how they played so much as it's like, well, every now and then Mickey would throw these weird tom hits in, so I'm going to throw that in now and then and see how that works. Oh, it works. Cool.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, if I heard Phil do something like a slide up and down, the certain song or a certain version of it, I'm going to do it because I want to do it that way.
Billy did a lot of rides.
It's also how it sounds in your head. For me, anyway. There's versions that we've all heard certain versions.
Like I heard, like Throwing Stones, like the early version from like 1982. And then, like, the version they released on the album is completely different. Or not completely different, but pretty different. And so I would hear that, and I would just do, the bass things that Phil did in, like, 82 that he never did in, like, the late, This is pretty heavy stuff, folks. Sorry. But, anyway.
No, I get you. But I think as far as, like, this rotation setup goes, it's it's especially for the guitarists. I think more than anybody else, they both.
Yeah, they're not here to speak.
Yeah, they're not here to speak. I'm going to try to do the best I can to explain this, but
We're going to tell you what they do.
But I think as far as that goes, I think it probably falls on those guys as much as it does anybody else.
They use the finest Hello Kitty and First Act gear available.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Nothing like a Taylor Swift guitar to rock out.
Nothing but the
Jerry.
best.
So, no, they've both have done a pretty good job of making sure that they have their own sound. And so did Carson, and so does Sean Cannon and guys like that. The people that play around town that play this music definitely all have their own sound and their own take on the way that Garcia would sound or that Weir would sound. And but I do think that maybe for those guys, I'm just assuming based on having talked to different people about gear that they need to have for this sort of a gig, that there's definitely there's gear specific stuff they need to have to be able to get tones and sounds that they want to have for certain songs, especially. Yeah. And I think that I won't get into the specifics because it's not my business, but I know talking with Tim tonight about the rig and
The neutron
pedal that
is
he's picked.
pretty much one of the big ones for
Yeah.
any kind of Garcia tones.
Yeah, if you're going to try to play Garcia, you have to have something that would be either an auto wah or
an envelope filter.
Yeah, an envelope filter, an auto wah, neutron, which is a big part of his later tone, especially. But even both those guys, all those guys I just mentioned, and you could go down the list of several other guys, Dave Casper, other guys in town that do this stuff. All of them have done a pretty good job of making sure that they've. I read a quote from Warren Haynes one time where he talked about, look, it's not my job to recreate Garcia, but there's licks and there's stuff that I need to be able to pay homage to, and I try to make sure I get those parts right.
Part of the song.
Yeah,
Right.
And even down to their tone, though, to a certain degree, they'll make sure that they get those things right. I think for me as a harmonica player, that's kind of the fun thing about being in this band is that I can kind of say, I mean, I don't know if it's better or worse or whatever else, but I don't know many other harp players in town that play with a bunch of pedals in front of them. And at first, in some way, shape, or form, it was a way to compensate for myself. I freely admit it. And then later, I realized that these are actually can be used as instruments themselves.
Yeah,
and
just layer them.
Yeah, and layer things and go. And I've gotten more comfortable with that over the years. And I think the freedom of playing in the bands that I play in, from this band or the Scandaleiros or anything else, is that I hear horn lines in my head. I hear synth or piano lines or organ lines, and also your guitar lines. And so I don't play straight up blues stuff in the first place, just because there's guys that do that really well. It's not my bag, and so it's like it's gonna be my own spin. And then doing it in the dead stuff, it's like I said a minute ago, it's kind of fun to play that Jerry lick at the same time as the two other guitarists are playing it already.
Right.
So I think that again, that's just a different spin that we bring to the table as far as the instrumentation and the arrangement for some of this stuff goes.
I had a fun conversation not too long ago with Tony Campanella and talked about some guitar gear and tone and stuff. Like, I don't really know that world, but it's fun to talk to guys that do know it.
And Tony does. Yeah.
But Tony was,
It's a rabbit hole.
yeah,
It really is. You can fall down it really deep.
Yeah. It's like, let me take out alone,
The way Tony was saying it, though, he's like, whatever Nick or Tim or anybody else could come play Tony's rig, but it's going to sound like them. And it's like his tone is in his hands, in Tony's hands.
Exactly.
And
That's what most people don't realize.
Right.
You can buy exactly what a certain guitar player or musician has, but
Right.
it's not going to sound like them.
Right.
Your fingers make the tone. Like, you are part of the instrument as much as the instrument.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, he can play these, whatever Freddie King licks or whatever and different things, like all that blues stuff that he plays, but it's like, it's going to sound like Tony playing it. So,
And he's a tone monster
very true,
too.
right?
He's one of those guys where he's got,
He has a sound.
he has a sound that is definitely him, and it comes from. You can hear the Hendrix stuff in him. You can hear the Stevie Ray stuff in him. You can hear the Freddie King stuff in here. You can hear a lot of that stuff, but he still sounds like Tony Campanella.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. That's kind of what you and I talked about this a lot. That St. Louis is blessed in the sense that we've got so many ridiculously talented musicians.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
And there's no shortage of talented guitar players who are completely different from each other, up and down. I mean, just look at the guys that that Sean brings on board for the voodoo shows back and forth that he plays with.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
all those guys who front their own bands and do, and bring some way to comp and make the show different when they're playing with them.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite networking tools for sure down there is Sean's voodoo players, because he's introduced me to so many other great players around town, and then I discover their original stuff and so on and stuff. So it's like it's really a great way to get introduced to a lot of great players around town. So
Yeah, he's doing a good thing down there.
yeah, it's a big shout out to our buddy Sean Cannon.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday at Broadway Oyster Bar.
Yeah, and we all do different voodoo shows as well as the voodoo almonds, of course, regularly, and then we all do different ones as well on different times. And
that was Sean. Man, that was Ben Harper burned one down.
Oh, 420 show.
The 420 show.
That was so much fun, man.
That was a blast.
Yeah, but you're up there rocking that
djembe.
Yeah.
It's funny because as a percussionist, because I do a lot of shows with Sean on percussion. As a percussionist, I've never, ever in my life owned a djembe.
Yeah.
Ever. Because I had congas. So I didn't need a djembe because other people had djembes. I had conga drums. And this show came around and I was like, son of a bitch. So, I get to write it off on taxes at the end of the year, but I went and bought a djembe. I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to buy a djembe. I've never owned one. I'm
funny thing was
50 years old. I've never owned a djembe.
The funny thing was you were standing on the sidewalk with me before the set, and you're like, I'm not walking out front. No way. I'll just play. There's no way. There's no room. It's stupid. I'm not walking out front. There's no way. Chandra comes out and he goes, so yeah, we'll bring you out in front. And Sean's like, okay.
Yeah.
It took like 2 seconds for you. Okay.
Come up here, buddy.
That was a fun night.
It was fun. That was a fun show.
Actually, I've not had a bad voodoo experience. Even on nights when because it happens where you think it's going to be a great night and it turns out to be a mediocre night crowd wise. But musically, I've never had a bad night.
No.
Yeah, same here.
I never would have guessed I would have heard Cree Ryder singing Mary Jane from Rick James.
Oh yeah,
but that was definitely one of the highlights.
I missed that.
That was a totally fun show.
I played the acoustic show that afternoon with him too, and he was asking me about a couple of different songs.
That's funny.
And I asked, "Who's singing Mary Jane?" And he goes, "I am."
Yeah.
And I laughed at first, and I go, "Wait, please tell me you're serious." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm singing."
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great. Well, and he killed it. It was great.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Well, the real highlight. Cree nailed it, but my favorite part is 3/4 through the song, Aaron and Adam walked through the back door and stuff up and started blowing horns right into Sean's microphone and it was so perfect.
That was hilarious because I kind of got the vantage point from sitting next to the drums and sort of behind Shauna, and they snuck in and sort of set their horns down, and Shauna turned around and looked at him and pointed at both of them like, "Nope, you're not getting off that easy. Get the horns out." And they literally were
it's
like,
probably the only time that song has ever been completely not second line, but like full blown New Orleans treated because it did get pretty you got pretty Mason Street there at the end of the whole thing for a little bit, which was awesome. But nobody's ever taken that Rick James tune and spun it that way.
It was perfect. Yeah. It was perfect the way they walked in.
The other one I was really surprised by that I wouldn't have guessed I would heard, but it obviously fit the show. But hearing Sean singing Sublime, "Smoke Two Joints," just wouldn't have guessed I would hearing Sean singing that one. But it worked out. It was a lot of fun.
Why not?
I think the fun of the night for me was the One Toke Over the Line.
Yeah,
was the Sweet little tune, because I told this story at the afternoon set. My grandparents' Southern Baptist Church in Arkansas. I learned that song, or first heard that song in that church, which I guess was a pretty common thing in the South that these Southern Baptist churches would take, because they thought it was one toe over the line, Sweet Jesus. And so these contemporary music ministers would add it to the. So I can remember singing it in church, and then I was probably 17 years old before I found out that it was one toke over the line. I was like, oh, it's a completely different meaning. It's a whole different thing.
Oh.
That set list was fun, though. That was one of those where, when he sent me the set list, I was like, I know all these songs.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've not played most of them ever in my life.
And we cut some songs that would have been fun to do.
That Gord's Gin and Juice cover, that's a great one. Yeah.
Yep.
We did that song in Lightning Bottle Band almost every night for probably 5 years, to the point where you get sick of it. And you don't play it for 10 years. And all of a sudden you play it again, you're like, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Sipping on gin and juice. Yeah, man, that was fun. That was a great night. There's a great example of what can happen at a voodoo show. You never know what could happen.
Smelled kind of funny that night.
Yeah, it did a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
Lettuce.
Something.
Somebody knows out there, just email Shane and tell him.
Yeah,
Parsley.
Right in, let us know.
Probably some of those same people will be at our show on Friday night.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we can ask them.
Yeah, we just ask them in person.
Oh, okay.
Friday night. What's that?
Yeah. Yep. So come on out to the Midwestern on Friday, May 10th. Again, 2 sets, acoustic set, 2 sets of acoustic and 2 sets electric.
Yeah, correct. Bring a post.
Yeah. So, and that's going to be a wild night for sure. So come on out, and everything else you can find more announcements coming soon on the Facebook page.
For Alligator Wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, like, it might be a silly question because I don't know, but is Alligator Wine, is that a dead song, or is that a reference?
It's a lyric in one of the songs.
Yeah, it's a line in one of the songs.
Yeah.
That was a fun day too. I was in back to teacher meetings, back to school meetings, and, really involved, and we were bantering back and forth that whole day. I was not paying attention to meetings at all, and we were bouncing things back and forth about names for the band. And I don't remember who came up with it, but it just kind of clicked all of a sudden. Like, oh, that's the.
Yeah.
Well, you were doing double checking to make sure that there was a base. There's a database somewhere that it names all the dead tribute bands.
There is another band called Alligator Wine on the East Coast, and I do believe they're slightly still active, but not very often. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd already been playing on for like a year.
Here's the thing: we're not the only other band that has got a similar, a name like another dead band. There's a couple of them out there that have similar names on opposite ends of the country as well. And I looked at it like, well, they're slightly inactive. They don't play that much. We're in St. Louis. We're not in direct competition. This isn't, it's not a competition. So
it's fitting because the Warlocks was originally the Grateful Dead's name, and they had to change their name because. The story I always heard was a little-known blues band out of Texas eventually became ZZ Top. It was originally called the Warlocks.
The story I heard was it was Velvet Underground.
Oh, Underground?
Pre-Velvet Underground was the Warlocks, yeah.
Okay, somebody else told me it was ZZ Top.
Lou Reed and those guys were called the Warlocks.
Lou Reed.
Yeah, I don't know.
I kind of wanted to be ZZ Top just because
jerk.
The story I heard was that it was Lou Reed and those guys, and that's why they changed it.
Huh. What were some of the names that didn't make the cut?
Well,
I don't even remember really.
Yeah,
I wanted to call like I remember back in the day. I wanted to call one of the dead bands if I was ever in one called Speeding Arrow.
Yeah.
From St. Stephen.
Yeah.
The lyric.
That's not bad, and that's generally if you look at
I came up with that.
Yeah. So if you look at any of the bands that are covering Grateful Dead music and their names, they all definitely tie back to a song lyric or a phrase, or even sometimes just an idea.
Children in Basement was one of them, which that was one of the ones that I threw out. I think was
there's a band called High Rider.
Yeah. We threw out a lot of different names of Terrapin in them because we were playing primarily Terrapin Tuesdays. And there was a lot of different Terrapin this, Terrapin that.
Oh yeah.
We threw out a lot of those, and then I'm sure we had some vague, speaking of 420, some vague references there as well. I'm sure we probably had some things we touched on that way, but. I think we all kind of agreed we wanted to do something that was going to be, at least if you were in the know, you knew that this was a Dead lyric, you knew this was related to. Like, if I was in another city and I saw that a band named Alligator Wine was playing, I would just assume it was a Dead band.
Right.
Like, in some of those things where, if you're aware, then you're aware. And so.
Yeah.
So I've done it in Chicago where I look up and see that so and so's playing, I'm like, that's got to be a Grateful Dead tribute band.
Right. Yeah.
But every once in a while you're wrong, and you get there, and it's a polka disco.
It's a Sepultura cover band. Yeah. Sepultura.
I was in a band called Quasi Mojo, and everybody thought we were this weird blues band, and we didn't play any blues at all, and people were always so disappointed.
Oh,
I thought you all played the blues. Nope. Sorry. This is original music.
You can do this. That's a fun game to play. Like worst band names you've ever been a part of. For a brief moment, I was in a band called Dylan Likes to Pee.
Wow.
Never had one gig, just jamming a buddy Steve's bass.
That's probably a good
Dylan
idea.
Likes to Pee. Yeah. I didn't name that band. Scott Rockwood always thought it was funny that he was in first. It was Liquid Biscuit Orchestra, which just sounds like really gross.
Sounds
so bad. Scott was like, "This is the worst name you've ever come up with, Phil." And I'm like, "No, this is not the worst. Trust me, there's worse." But this is so we're stuck with.
Liquid Biscuit.
Yeah.
So that became Thunder Biscuit Orchestra, which Sean Hartung said that's just a fart instead of the other.
Right.
And some bad band names along the way. Mark Thomas and I had a band called Moose Knuckle.
I was in a group that we debated some, changing our name every time we played, and we were going to be Stinkfinger or Stank Fist.
Stank Fist.
Yeah.
That sounds like 7 to 10 years right
This is
there.
getting off the rails, guys. We're going to lose our audience here.
We were younger. It was fun.
Yeah, it's funny how you think these are great ideas when you're young. Like Dylan Likes to Pee. Like remember Steve saying that, and we all laughed. It was something that happened in the basement with his dog. The dog's name was Dylan. Pete knows something.
There you go.
And he goes, "Sorry, man. Dylan likes to pee." Pete knows somebody's like the kick drum case. He peed on the side of it, and he's like, "Sorry, man. Dylan likes to pee." There's the band name.
There you go.
Thank God we never kicked out loud of that one.
Well, I think that's the story even with Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters. He's like, man, if I would have known I've been going by Foo Fighters for the rest of my life, I would have picked a better band. He's like, but somehow it was a silly name, and then it all of a sudden became a big hit. So
it was probably like, we need a name for the gig.
right.
Yeah.
Crap, we keep getting gigs.
Uh-oh, what do we do now?
Well, that's how Liquid Biscuit happened. We decided, like, randomly, Scott Rockwood, myself, and Brian Sachs were going to do trio shows, and I booked a gig at this little dive bar over Maryland Heights. And the girl goes, well, like, I didn't expect her to book us. I was going to leave some information, and she came out and she goes, yeah, I've got dates open. I told her that we played in Lightning Bottle and that Scott played in Manahoochee, and she goes, yeah, I got dates open. Pops out her calendar, and she goes, how about this date and that date? And I go, oh, okay, those match. And she's like, what's the name of the band? We just talked that afternoon at the afternoon gig about doing this. And so I tried to think of something that would be LB for Lightning Bottle, and I said, Liquid Biscuit? So I got to the night gig, and I'm like, guess what, guys? We got acoustic gigs. Yeah. That's the good news.
Bad news is.
Bad news is we're booked under Liquid Biscuit.
Scott's like, that's gross.
This reminds me of that scene in Wayne's World when he's like trying to come up with the lineup for Wayne Stock, and he's like, who else is going to be there? Van Halen,
Sweet. I was in a band in high school, or just out of high school, and we played a battle of the bands in Columbia, and we didn't want to use our normal band name, so we called ourselves the Glass Camels.
Sweet.
We didn't win.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's a shame the world never knew about Glass
That
Camel.
was my nickname in high school, Glass Camel.
And actually, that was like, it was one of those things where it was it wasn't a last minute so much, but there was no promotion.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter what you were called up front. So in the moment, we were like, let's don't say who we are.
Yeah.
We're somebody else tonight.
Yeah.
Because it was a bad event.
The band formerly known as this, no longer known as this, but possibly known as this now.
Those some of those, like, they got those like random band name generators online too, and like that's what it sounds like, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you can see Alligator Wine again May 10th at the Midwestern, June 21st at the Boathouse, and July 3rd, Naked Vine, Chesterfield, Missouri, Dark Star Orchestra after party. So come on out. Again, get involved on Facebook, and see you out at the show. Thank you guys for doing this, man.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks for coming over, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you so much.
It's been a good time. So
Always is.
yeah. I'll see you guys.
See you, bud.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
Rock Paper Podcast. Rock Paper Podcast. Rock Paper Podcast. Rock Paper Podcast.
Well, yeah, that was it.